Live from your Central Texas news leader, you're watching KXAN Austin News.
You know, Jim and I were just talking about, we've been talking a lot about those radiation levels in Japan.
We have, and our partners at the Weather Channel have really been analyzing the weather conditions and how it relates to the radioactivity that are coming from those nuclear reactors. This afternoon, I talked with meteorologist Brian Norcross at the Weather Channel about that relationship. Well, let's first talk about the weather conditions around those nuclear power plants today. What are the conditions now, and how have they changed?
Well, what you see on a satellite is there's actually a little system, what we call a short wave, a disturbance in the atmosphere that's moving over northern Japan right now. And so that's now switched the winds around, kind of pushed a cold front through, switched the winds around to the northwest. So for now and for the rest of the week into Saturday, those winds are going to blow offshore. But later on the weekend, sometime late Saturday night into Sunday their time, there's going to be a cold front coming along right in the general vicinity of the plant there. So the winds are going to become light at that time. So that's when there's going to be a little more concern for any kind of particulates or anything that's radioactive coming out of those plants staying in the area as opposed to getting pushed offshore.
And you show those winds blowing offshore, obviously out into, then across the Pacific Ocean. I know there are some people concerned about the possibility of radioactive fallout here in the U.S., but that's not real likely, is it?
No, it's not. And there are two things going on here. First of all, the kind of releases that are coming out of that plant right now are fairly low level in the atmosphere. And we've seen the dispersion models, and they just drastically reduce just off the Japanese coast. And there are only very barely trace amounts as you move on offshore. Now, if there were to be a big explosion there, push it way up in the atmosphere so that there actually would be winds transporting it all the way to Alaska or the West Coast. Even under those circumstances, the expectation would be that the quantities and the concentrations would be so low as to perhaps be detectable, but very, very likely not to be a threat to humans.
So right now the danger is the area closest to the nuclear facility. What about other areas in Japan? Are they potentially at risk with these changing weather conditions?
Well, they're potentially at risk, of course, because we can only look out a week or 10 days. But in this week or 10 days, the only concern we see is late in the weekend for the area right around the plant, because the winds go kind of light and variable and really will be dependent on local conditions, being right by the ocean and the mountains, and the winds will be shifting during the day, but in all cases very light. So Tokyo being well to the south would not seem at all to be threatened for as far out as we can see. That's not to say that something couldn't come along in the future, especially if there's a major release that could have an effect on wider areas in Japan, but nothing that we can see right now.
And I think the main takeaway there from meteorologist Brian Norcross was we are so far away, 5,000 miles between Japan and our west coast, that really the threat of any radiation in the United States is just very, very minimal, and only if something unforeseen at this point happened and sent those radioactive particles well up into the atmosphere. But even then, the dispersal would be so significant that really not much of a concern here. But our thoughts, obviously, with everyone in Japan who's are obviously very, very concerned about the situation that continues to unfold there. Well, in Central Texas today, we are overcast. Well, let's call it mostly cloudy right now. We've finally started to see a little sunshine this afternoon here around the Austin area. Now, let's look at our Hill Country camera, and you'll notice out there a lot more sunshine across Llano County and Mason County. It took a while out in the Hill Country today, too, but that clearing, that eroding of the cloud cover has been working from west to east from the Hill Country here toward the metro area. And finally, we got a little bit of sun through the clouds this afternoon. And when we did, temperature went up to 78 real quickly. That's been our high today. By 8 o'clock tonight, we're still at 72, and it'll be a wonderful evening. At 10 o'clock tonight, mostly cloudy and 68 degrees. Right now, temperatures in the 70s, mid to upper 70s in most areas, some low 80s out here where there's been a little more sunshine in the Hill Country, 82 degrees in Llano right now. 78 mostly cloudy at Camp Mabry, mostly cloudy out at the airport. It is also 78 degrees. Variable winds at 6 miles per hour in the city, and those winds pretty strong out of the southeast at ABIA at 18 miles per hour. Sunset tonight at 7:40. A lot in that pollen count again today. Mold, oak, hackberry, cottonwood, all medium at low concentrations today. These trees, our allergy forecast for tomorrow. Tree pollens, when you put them all together, will be high out there. Mold remaining medium. Around our state, There's been more sunshine in West Texas, can you tell? That's where all the 80s are, where it's been a little cloudier today from Dallas down I-35 to Austin and then down to Corpus Christi. A bit cooler in the 70s. I think all the spring breakers are really enjoying it down in South Padre Island today, though. There's been more sunshine down there than we've seen, and they've been in the low 80s. The gray shades represent the low clouds that have been in our sky much of the day. Finally, this afternoon, they're beginning to erode a little bit, but they're not associated with any significant storm system. The storm track right now across the northern United States, and so that's going to keep storms north of us for the next 1 to 2 weeks the way it looks right now. We should continue to be warmer and drier than normal, as we said yesterday, on out through maybe that 14-day period, maybe a slight chance of a shower about a week from today. In the meantime, the morning low clouds, the afternoon sun. Morning low clouds again on Friday, and then some afternoon sunshine. Hopefully a little more and a little earlier than what we saw today. Temperatures tonight, we're only expecting to fall back into the low 60s across the area. Maybe some of the cooler spots dipping into the 50s, well above average. And high temperatures tomorrow, if we get a little more sun a little earlier in the day, we could get as warm as this, into the low to mid 80s. If the clouds hang on longer into the afternoon, it won't be quite this warm tomorrow. But any way you slice it, it's going to be above average. 63 tonight, low clouds coming back in later. We'll start the day overcast, maybe some drizzle or light fog again in the morning, then a high of 83 degrees with some sunshine beginning to break through the clouds. Tomorrow, St. Patrick's Day, looks like a good one. Hopefully, again, more afternoon sun than we saw today. And then notice after tomorrow, the weather almost identical from day to day. Morning low clouds, patchy fog, patchy drizzle, and then a little afternoon sunshine. Our next chance of any rain coming about a week from today. Shannon?